Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to completely reframe how you look at the world's glaciers. I mean, most of us just look at them and see frozen water, right? Just these massive, static white landscapes that are unfortunately slowly melting. But today we're going to see them for what they truly are. They are the ultimate, highly active cold storage for Earth's most incredible secrets. We're looking at a system that doesn't just crush things in its path, but actually meticulously preserves billion-dollar fortunes, bizarre ancient biology, and completely forgotten human histories. To really grasp the sheer preserving power of this ice, consider this absolutely staggering discovery. So out in the freezing wilderness of Siberia, ivory hunters were digging through the permafrost and they stumbled upon a remarkably intact baby mammoth, who was later named Yucca, by the way. But here is the detail that quite literally stunned scientists worldwide. When they examined this 39,000-year-old body, they didn't just find dry, dusty bones. They found flowing red blood. It had miraculously survived tens of thousands of years locked away in the ice. No way, right?
So, what else is hiding down there? Well, here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at hidden wealth and lost machines. Second, prehistoric life preserved. Third, frozen tragedies and human history. And finally, number 4, unlocking the future's secrets.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, hidden wealth and lost machines.
When you think of gold mining, you've probably pictured deep, dark, dangerous underground shafts. But during the last ice age, advancing glaciers essentially acted like giant bulldozers. They swept up just vast amounts of gold-bearing rocks and trapped them right inside the ice. And now, as global temperatures rise and these massive glaciers melt, they are literally releasing these ancient gold deposits directly into glacial rivers. It's this entirely new frontier for discovery, and it's happening right at the surface.
And hey, it's not just ancient gold either. Back in 2013, a French hiker was scaling a glacier on Mont Blanc over in Western Europe, and he spotted this metal box just sticking out of the ice. It was stamped with the words, "Made in India." Inside were over 100 incredibly valuable emeralds and rubies, worth roughly $340,000. These gems were the tragic remnants of Air India Flight 1001, which crashed into the mountain way back in 1966. The ice just held onto them for nearly half a century before casually offering them up to a random hiker.
Now, extracting these frozen giants, it's an absolutely massive undertaking. Take the Glacier Girl extraction, for example. During World War II, in 1942, a squadron of P-38 Lightning fighters and B-17 bombers had to make an emergency landing on a Greenland glacier in the middle of a blizzard. The crews were thankfully rescued, but the planes were left behind. Fast forward 50 years, and those planes were buried under 75 to 90 meters of solid ice. It took 11 years, using these massive heating plates, to melt tunnels deep into the ice, and $3 million to retrieve just one single P-38 fighter, piece by piece. Amazingly though, the plane was in such pristine condition that by 2002, it was fully restored and flying again.
Moving right along to part 2, prehistoric life perfectly preserved. To really understand how this works, we need to talk about permafrost. Basically, this is ground that remains completely frozen for more than 2 consecutive years, though in a lot of cases, we're talking about millennia. Because the temperature stays strictly sub-zero and oxygen exposure is incredibly low, the normal processes of decay, they just stop entirely. That right there is the scientific foundation for exactly how hair, skin, and even perfectly intact DNA manage to survive completely preserved over thousands of years. The staggering scale of history preserved here is honestly hard to wrap your head around. I mean, 70 million years ago, Antarctica wasn't a frozen desert, it was actually a lush green forest, home to the Antarctopelta dinosaur. And fun fact, that fossilized skeleton took scientists 10 agonizing years to extract from the ice, starting in 1986. Then we jump to 39,000 years ago with Yucca the mammoth, and 30,000 years ago to another incredible mammoth discovery up in North America. The ice is basically this continuous, physical record of life on Earth. Let's circle back to Yucca the mammoth for a second, who we talked about at the start. How exactly did her blood remain liquid? Well, when scientists in Russia and Japan studied her, they discovered a natural antifreeze chemical right inside the mammoth's blood. It's an evolutionary marvel designed to keep them warm in those harsh climates. Today, Yucca is kept in a facility in Yakutsk at a constant -20 degrees, and scientists are actively using her surviving cells to research the breathtaking and maybe a little sci-fi possibilities of cloning and literally bringing the species back to life. And the craziest part is, these discoveries are happening right now. Just recently, in June 2022, a gold miner named Travis Mudry was digging into the permafrost in Canada's Yukon Territory, and he uncovered this black, shiny object. Turns out it was a 30,000-year-old female baby woolly mammoth, complete with skin, hair, and a trunk. And talk about dramatic timing. Paleontologists rushed in and managed to extract this priceless biological treasure just one single hour before a massive storm rolled in. If they'd been any later, she could have been washed away forever.
Now, I gotta warn you, sometimes the biology preserved in the ice is a little bit, well, gross. High in the Garetooth Mountains of Montana sits Grasshopper Glacier. Unlike normal white glaciers, this one is an eerie shade of gray. Why? Because it is packed with literally millions of extinct Rocky Mountain locusts. Centuries ago, a massive swarm was caught in a freak blizzard mid-migration and instantly frozen into the ice. It created a very literal bug in the system of this mountain landscape.
Okay, let's shift gears to part 3. Frozen tragedies and human history.
What really gets me here is how relatable ancient history becomes when it's preserved this well. In 1991, tourists in the European Alps found a body frozen in the ice. This was Ötzi the Iceman, Europe's oldest known natural mummy, dating back 5,000 years. What's so amazing is that scientists didn't just find his survival gear, a bow, a dagger, a little pouch. They mapped his exact medical profile. Turns out, Ötzi had the gene for male pattern baldness. He was lactose intolerant, and he suffered from Lyme disease and severe joint pain. It just completely transforms an ancient artifact into a very real, suffering, highly relatable human being.
Of course, the ice has claimed its fair share of modern explorers, too. In 1845, the famed British explorer Sir John Franklin set out with 2 massive ships, the HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. Their goal was to navigate the Northwest Passage. Now remember, the Panama Canal didn't exist yet, so ships had to sail all the way down and around South America. This icy shortcut was meant to save months of travel. Instead, it became a frozen tomb. The ice trapped both ships, and all 129 men tragically perished in the freezing Arctic. And actually, the search for Franklin's lost expedition sparked its own tragedies. In 1850, the British government sent the HMS Investigator to rescue Franklin, but by 1853, the Investigator itself became hopelessly trapped in the Arctic ice, forcing the crew to just abandon ship. The vessel sank to the bottom of the ocean, and its exact location was a complete mystery for over 150 years. That is, until a massive breakthrough finally happened in 2010.
Now, how they found it is just incredible. The Parks Canada expert team didn't rely on satellite maps or anything like that. They relied on local, indigenous Inuit oral history. For generations, Inuit elders had passed down stories that their ancestors had taken iron and copper from a strange ship trapped in ice at Mercy Bay. So by following these centuries-old stories, the modern dive team dropped their sonar scanner into the water and found the HMS Investigator sitting completely upright and in perfect condition on their very first scan. How cool is that?
Which brings us to our final section, Part 4, Unlocking the Future's Secrets.
Back in 1958, a Soviet expedition in Antarctica made a discovery that is almost impossible to comprehend. Buried completely out of sight beneath 600 meters of solid ice, they found the Gamburtsev mountain range. And we aren't just talking about a few rolling hills here. This hidden mountain range is 1,250 kilometers long, with peaks reaching over 3,300 meters high. It is literally the size of the European Alps, totally entombed in ice. Even with today's advanced technology, we know barely anything about its geological makeup, purely because it is so deeply buried.
So as you can see, our planet's ice isn't just some static white landscape. It's a dynamic vault holding Earth's deepest history. But right now, global warming is forcefully unlocking that vault. Glaciers and permafrost are melting at a rapid, unprecedented pace. So, as the ice recedes, it leaves us with one massive question. What world-altering secret is waiting just beneath the surface to be uncovered next?